The train arrived without urgency, easing into the platform as if it had all the time in the world. Its metal body released a soft sigh as it slowed, a long breath that blended with the warm evening air. Yellow platform lights reflected gently on the ground, stretching into quiet lines that shimmered and faded as people walked across them. It was already late, but not yet fully night. The sky held a deep blue shade, the kind that appears only for a short while, when day has let go but darkness has not fully taken over. The air carried the faint smell of dust, iron, and something lightly sweet from a nearby tea stall. Nothing was sharp. Nothing demanded attention. Passengers moved calmly. Some carried small bags, others heavier ones that rested easily against their sides. No one was rushing. Voices were low, softened by the evening. Even the sounds of the station felt gentle, footsteps on concrete, the quiet clink of metal, the distant murmur of announcements echoing without urgency. You stepped closer to the train, letting your hand rest briefly on its cool metal side. The surface felt solid and steady, dependable in a quiet way. This train had traveled these tracks countless times, through nights like this and nights very much like it. It seemed to know exactly what to do. Inside the coach, the light was dim but warm. Rows of seats and berths waited patiently, already familiar with the rhythm of night travel. Curtains swayed slightly as air moved through open windows. Somewhere down the coach, someone adjusted their bedding. Somewhere else, a soft yawn drifted into the air and disappeared. You found your place and settled in slowly. There was no reason to hurry. The seat felt firm but comfortable, shaped by years of travelers before you. Above, the ceiling fan turned at an unhurried pace, its sound steady and predictable, like a slow heartbeat. Outside the window, the platform stretched on, calm and unchanging. Vendors called out gently, their voices rising and falling like distant waves. A kettle steamed quietly. Cups clinked together. The simple rituals of travel continued, familiar and reassuring. As you sat there, you noticed how the day seemed to release its hold. The weight of hours spent awake began to loosen. Thoughts that had felt important earlier now drifted to the edges, losing their sharpness. There was nowhere else to be. Nothing else to do. The train gave a soft signal, not loud, not demanding. Just a reminder. Doors were closed with care. A final few footsteps echoed on the platform, then faded away. The station felt still, as if it too was preparing to rest. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the train began to move. At first, it was only a gentle shift, a quiet rolling sensation beneath you. Then the wheels found their rhythm on the tracks, producing a soft, repeating sound that flowed evenly through the coach. Outside, lights passed by one after another. Poles, signs, small structures, all slipping quietly into the night. Their reflections danced briefly across the window before disappearing. The platform gave way to open space, and the station was soon behind you. The sound of the train deepened into a steady hum. A comforting noise, constant and smooth. Each repetition of the wheels felt like an invitation to relax further. With every passing moment, the world outside grew darker and quieter. Inside the coach, people adjusted themselves gently. A blanket was pulled closer. Someone shifted their position and then became still again. No conversations lingered. The night encouraged silence, and silence was welcome. The air flowing through the window was cooler now. It brushed softly against your skin, carrying the scent of open land and distant trees. It felt clean, light, and soothing. You allowed your breathing to match the rhythm of the train, slow and unforced. Time began to stretch in a pleasant way. Minutes no longer felt separate. Everything blended together, the sound, the motion, the dim light. The train moved forward, steady and certain, while your body slowly unwound from the day. Fields passed quietly in the darkness. Occasionally, a small light appeared in the distance, a lone house, a quiet crossing, then slipped away just as gently. There was no need to watch closely. Just knowing the world continued outside was enough. Your eyes grew heavier, blinking more slowly now. Muscles relaxed without instruction. The simple act of being carried forward through the night felt safe, almost familiar, even if this journey was new. The train continued on, unbothered by the passing hours. Its wheels sang their soft, endless song. The night deepened, wrapping everything in calm. And as the journey carried on, the space around you seemed to grow quieter still, making room for rest, for ease, for the gentle beginning of sleep. The train moved deeper into the night now, far from the noise of the station it had left behind. Outside the window, the world had softened into long stretches of darkness, broken only by occasional lights that appeared briefly and then slipped away. The steady motion beneath you felt reassuring, as if the train itself was carrying not just passengers, but also the quiet promise of rest. Inside the coach, everything had settled. Most people were still now, having found comfortable positions. The earlier movements, the small adjustments and rustling sounds, had faded. What remained was a shared stillness, gently held together by the slow rhythm of travel. The ceiling fan continued its calm rotation, moving air just enough to be felt, never enough to distract. Its sound blended perfectly with the distant hum of the wheels on the tracks. Together, they created a kind of soft background music, unchanging and predictable, the kind that made it easy to let thoughts drift. Your breathing became slower without effort. Each breath felt deeper than the last, filling the chest gently and leaving just as easily. There was no need to think about it. The body seemed to know what to do on its own, responding naturally to the calm environment. Outside, the land stretched wide and quiet. Fields lay unseen in the darkness, resting after the long day. Trees stood still, their shapes barely visible against the night sky. Somewhere far away, a dog barked once, then fell silent again. The sound arrived faintly and dissolved almost immediately. The train passed through a small station without stopping. A few dim lights illuminated an empty platform. No voices, no movement. Just a signboard, unreadable in the dark, and a bench waiting patiently for the morning. The moment passed quickly, carried away by the steady forward motion. Back inside, the dim yellow light of the coach remained unchanged. It did not flicker or glare. It simply existed, soft and constant, like a quiet companion. Shadows rested in corners and along the edges of seats, unmoving. You shifted slightly, not out of restlessness, but to settle more comfortably. The seat supported you well. The gentle vibration of the train traveled through the floor, through the seat, and into your body, almost like a subtle massage, loosening any remaining tension. Thoughts came and went, but none stayed long. Memories appeared briefly, moments from the day, familiar faces, small details, and then drifted away on their own. There was no need to follow them. The night seemed to gently guide the mind towards stillness. Far ahead, the train let out a low, distant horn. It was not sharp or alarming, just a soft announcement of presence, echoing faintly across the dark land. After a moment, even that sound faded, leaving only the steady rhythm once again. The air grew slightly cooler as the hours passed. It felt refreshing, calming. A blanket was pulled a little closer, not tightly, just enough to feel held. The simple comfort of warmth against the cool night made everything feel balanced and safe. Another stretch of darkness passed. Time no longer felt measured in minutes. It flowed smoothly, uninterrupted. The journey did not ask for attention. It simply continued, carrying everyone forward together, through the quiet hours. Somewhere down the coach, a sleeper shifted inside softly, then became still again. The sound was gentle, almost comforting, a reminder that others were nearby, resting just as peacefully. Outside, the sky was now fully dark. Stars were faint but steady, scattered lightly above, visible only when the train passed through areas without lights. They seemed distant and calm, unmoved by the slow movement below. The train crossed a bridge. For a brief moment, the sound changed subtly, becoming slightly hollow, then returning to its usual rhythm. Beneath, unseen water flowed quietly, continuing its own journey through the night. Your eyelids felt heavier now. Blinks became longer, slower. The boundary between wakefulness and sleep softened, no longer clearly defined. It felt natural to let go, to rest in this in-between state. The train did not rush. It never rushed. It followed its path steadily, mile after mile, carrying the quiet of the night with it. Each gentle sway, each soft sound, encouraged deeper relaxation. In the distance, another station appeared, this one small and silent. A single lamp cast a circle of light on the platform. No one boarded. No one stepped off. The train passed through smoothly, respectfully, as if not to disturb the sleeping town. As the lights faded behind you, the coach returned to its familiar dimness. Everything felt exactly as it should be. Calm. Predictable. Safe. Your breathing now matched the train completely, slow, even, unforced. Muscles rested heavily, comfortably. The day felt far away, already fading into memory. The journey continued, steady and quiet, carrying you gently through the night, deeper into rest, deeper into calm, as sleep waited patiently, just ahead, ready to arrive without effort. The train moved on without interruption, its pace unchanged, its purpose steady and quiet. The hours of the night deepened, and with them came a sense of complete separation from the busy world of daytime. Nothing from earlier seemed close anymore. The present moment felt wide and open, filled only with the gentle motion of travel. Inside the coach, the air had settled into a comfortable stillness. Curtains hung quietly by the windows, barely moving now. The soft light remained constant, never too bright, never too dim, as if carefully chosen to match the calm of the night. Shadows rested easily along the walls and floor, unchanging and peaceful. Your body felt heavier in the most comforting way. Shoulders softened. Hands rested naturally, no longer holding any tension. Even the small muscles of the face relaxed, smoothing into ease. There was nothing left to prepare for, nothing that required effort. Outside the window, long stretches of land passed unnoticed. Villages slept behind closed doors. Roads lay empty. Occasionally, a distant light marked a crossing or a signal, glowing briefly before slipping away behind the train. Each appearance was gentle, never sudden, never demanding attention. The sound of the wheels continued their slow, even pattern. There was something deeply reassuring about it, something ancient and familiar. A rhythm that did not change, did not hurry, and did not expect anything in return. It simply continued, one soft repetition after another. Your breathing grew even slower now. Each inhale felt smooth and quiet, each exhale longer than the last. There was no effort in it. The body had fully accepted the night and responded by letting go. The train passed through another small station, barely more than a name and a lamp. The platform was empty, untouched, as if waiting patiently for the morning. The light slid across the window and then disappeared, leaving the darkness undisturbed. The gentle sway of the coach became more noticeable as awareness softened. A slow side-to-side motion, subtle and regular, like being rocked. It invited stillness. It encouraged rest. It made it easy to remain exactly where you were. Thoughts became fewer now, appearing only briefly before fading. They no longer formed complete ideas. Instead, they felt like distant echoes, soft and unimportant. The mind seemed content to drift, unanchored, floating lightly alongside the motion of the train. Somewhere far ahead, the engine continued its work, steady and reliable. You didn't need to hear it clearly to know it was there. Its presence was felt rather than heard, a quiet certainty pulling everything forward through the dark. The night outside grew cooler still, but inside the coach, warmth remained. The balance between cool air and gentle covering felt perfect. Nothing needed adjusting. Everything was already just right. Another bridge passed beneath the train, announced only by a slight change in sound, then gone. Beneath it, unseen water flowed calmly, reflecting no light, carrying its own quiet stories through the night. Time slipped by unnoticed. The hours did not mark themselves clearly. There were no reminders, no clocks demanding attention. Only the continuous present, stretching comfortably in all directions. Your eyelids rested mostly closed now, opening only slightly, then closing again. Vision blurred into soft shapes and shadows. The edges of the world faded, leaving only sound and motion, both gentle and constant. A faint vibration traveled through the floor and into your body, steady and low. It was not enough to disturb, only enough to be felt, like a distant hum that grounded you, reminding you that the journey continued safely. Outside, the sky remained dark and wide. Stars appeared and disappeared between clouds and distant lights, never sharp, never bright. They seemed content to remain in the background, silent witnesses to the slow movement below. Inside the coach, everything felt shared but quiet. Other passengers rested nearby, unseen but present, each carried by the same motion, each wrapped in their own calm. There was comfort in that shared stillness, even without words. The train moved through the night as it always had, as it always would. Track after track, mile after mile, without pause or urgency. Its consistency felt soothing, almost meditative. Breathing, sound, motion, all aligned now. Nothing stood apart. Everything flowed together in a single, unbroken experience of rest. Sleep no longer felt like something ahead. It felt close, surrounding, already beginning to settle in gentle layers. Awareness softened further, edges dissolving, thoughts quieting completely. The train continued on, steady and calm, carrying you deeper into the night, deeper into rest, allowing sleep to arrive naturally, without effort, just as the journey itself continued, quietly, patiently, and without end. The train remained constant in its movement, never changing its rhythm, never breaking the quiet agreement it had made with the night. The darkness outside felt deeper now, thicker, as if the world itself had slowed to match the pace of rest. There were fewer lights, fewer signs of activity, only long stretches of calm passing silently by. Inside the coach, the atmosphere felt even more settled. The earlier sense of travel had softened into something closer to stillness, even though the train continued forward. It felt as though the space around you had learned how to be quiet, how to exist without asking anything in return. Your body rested fully now. There was no urge to move, no signal of discomfort. Legs felt heavy, supported. Arms lay easily where they had fallen. The gentle rise and fall of your breathing was the only movement that mattered, slow and steady, like a tide that no longer reached the shore. The sound of the wheels had become less distinct, blending into a smooth, continuous tone. It no longer registered as individual beats but as a single, flowing presence. The mind accepted it completely, no longer separating sound from silence. Outside the window, the land was almost entirely hidden. Fields, trees, and roads existed only as ideas now, imagined rather than seen. Occasionally, a faint reflection appeared on the glass, a soft blur of light that drifted across and vanished without leaving a trace. The train passed another quiet crossing. A distant bell rang once, muffled and low, then fell silent again. The moment was brief and gentle, never sharp enough to interrupt the calm. Inside, the dim light remained unchanged. It cast no strong shadows, created no contrasts. Everything appeared softened, rounded by the night. Corners dissolved into darkness. Lines blurred slightly, as if the world itself were preparing to sleep. Your breathing slowed further, settling into a deep, effortless rhythm. Each breath seemed to last longer than the last, stretching comfortably, unhurried. There was a sense of sinking, not downward, but inward, into rest. The slight rocking of the train continued, subtle and regular. It felt like being carried, supported by something larger and more certain. There was no need to stay alert. Nothing required attention. The journey was already well underway. Thoughts had nearly disappeared now. If one appeared, it was faint and incomplete, dissolving before it could form into anything solid. The mind rested in the space between thoughts, calm and unoccupied. Far ahead, the train moved through open land, uninterrupted by stations or signals. The night stretched wide and empty, offering no resistance. Everything flowed easily, smoothly. The cool air brushing in through the window felt softer now, less noticeable, as if it too had slowed. The balance between warmth and coolness remained perfect, requiring no adjustment. Comfort existed without effort. Somewhere in the distance, an animal moved through the darkness, unseen and unheard by most. The world outside continued its quiet life, separate and gentle, while inside the train, rest deepened. Time no longer had shape. Minutes and hours blended together, indistinguishable. There was only the present moment, extended and calm, floating gently alongside the motion of the train. Your eyelids stayed closed now, no longer lifting. Vision had fully faded, replaced by sensation and sound, both muted and steady. The body felt secure, held in place by stillness. The train crossed another bridge, the sound changing slightly once again, then returning to normal. The brief variation passed without significance, barely noticed before it was gone. Inside the coach, everything remained peaceful. No sudden movements. No voices. Just the shared quiet of rest, deep and unbroken. The train continued forward, faithful to its path, carrying the night with it. Each mile passed unnoticed, each moment blending seamlessly into the next. Sleep settled more deeply now, not arriving all at once, but layering gently, softly, until wakefulness thinned and drifted away. Awareness softened, edges dissolving completely. The journey did not pause. It did not need to. It simply continued, steady and calm, through the quiet hours before dawn, carrying you onward, wrapped in stillness, held gently by the night, as rest became complete and effortless. The train continued its steady movement, unchanged and unhurried, as the night reached its deepest hours. Outside, the darkness felt complete now, uninterrupted by towns or crossings. The land rested fully, wrapped in silence, as if the world itself had exhaled and decided not to inhale just yet. Inside the coach, the sense of motion softened even further. The train no longer felt like something traveling through space, but like a quiet room that simply happened to sway. The gentle vibration beneath you blended into the background, becoming part of the stillness rather than something separate from it. Your body felt completely at ease. There was no awareness of individual muscles anymore, only a general feeling of heaviness and warmth. Limbs rested naturally, exactly where they were meant to be. Nothing needed adjustment. Nothing asked to be changed. Breathing flowed slowly and deeply, smooth and quiet. Each inhale arrived without effort. Each exhale lingered slightly longer, releasing any remaining tension. The rhythm was steady, predictable, comforting. The sound of the wheels was now distant, softened, as though heard through layers of calm. It was no longer something to listen to, only something that existed, like a quiet presence that reassured without demanding attention. Outside the window, the glass reflected faint shapes from inside the coach, blurred outlines of seats, dim lights, shadows resting peacefully. The world beyond the glass remained unseen, but it did not feel absent. It felt present in a different way, known rather than observed. The train passed through another station in the distance, so small and quiet it was barely noticeable. A single light glowed softly, then faded behind you. No announcements followed. No doors opened. The moment passed as gently as it arrived. Inside, everything remained unchanged. The dim lighting held steady. The air stayed cool and calm. The balance between sound and silence felt perfect, as if carefully maintained. Thoughts had fully loosened now. The mind rested in a quiet, open space, free from direction or focus. There was no need to think. No need to remember. No need to anticipate. Everything was already taken care of. The rocking motion of the train continued, slow and regular. It felt like being gently cradled, supported on all sides. Each sway encouraged deeper relaxation, inviting the body to sink further into rest. Time drifted by unnoticed. Hours passed without leaving a mark. The journey unfolded without milestones, without urgency. The night simply continued, smooth and uninterrupted. Somewhere far away, the horizon began its quiet preparation for morning, though there was no sign of it yet. The darkness remained dominant, calm and protective, allowing rest to deepen without interruption. Your breathing remained slow and even. The chest rose and fell gently, rhythmically. With each breath, the sense of separation between body and surroundings softened further, until everything felt connected by the same calm flow. The train crossed another stretch of track where the sound changed slightly, then returned to its familiar pattern. The variation was brief and gentle, barely enough to register before it faded away. Inside the coach, all remained peaceful. Other passengers slept nearby, unseen but present, sharing the same quiet journey. There was comfort in knowing that the train carried everyone together, safely and steadily through the night. The motion continued, unbroken. The sound continued, unchanging. The night held everything gently, without effort. Sleep settled fully now, deep and complete. Awareness faded into a soft background, leaving only calm, steady rest. The train moved on, carrying the quiet forward, through the dark hours, toward a morning that would arrive gently, in its own time, long after rest had done its work. The train moved on, just as it had all night, steady and patient, following its familiar path through the darkness. Nothing about its motion changed. Nothing needed to. The hours before dawn are often the quietest, and now the world seemed to rest completely within that silence. Inside the coach, the air felt softer, as if it had settled into place. Even the faint movements of fabric and breath had become nearly imperceptible. The space felt held, enclosed in calm, like a room designed only for rest. Your body remained deeply relaxed. There was no clear sense of where one part ended and another began. Everything felt evenly supported, comfortably heavy. The gentle warmth around you stayed constant, neither increasing nor fading, simply present. Breathing continued in a slow, natural rhythm. Each breath flowed easily, unforced and smooth. The pauses between breaths felt longer now, spacious and calm, as if time itself had widened to make room for rest. The sound of the train was still there, but distant, softened even further. It felt like a low, continuous hum that blended seamlessly with silence. It no longer stood out as sound, only as reassurance. Outside, the darkness remained deep and complete. The land passed quietly, unseen and undisturbed. No lights appeared for a long while. No signals. No crossings. Just uninterrupted night stretching on. The window reflected nothing clearly now, only vague shapes that shifted gently with the motion. The boundary between inside and outside felt less defined, as if everything existed within the same calm space. Another bridge passed beneath the train, marked by a subtle change in sound, then gone. The moment slipped by without significance, leaving the steady rhythm untouched. Inside the coach, stillness remained absolute. No voices. No footsteps. No movement beyond the slow sway of the train itself. The shared quiet felt complete and settled. Thoughts did not return. The mind rested in a state beyond thinking, where nothing needed attention or direction. Awareness felt diffuse, spread gently through the calm rather than focused on any single point. Time continued to pass, though it left no impression. Minutes and hours moved through without announcement. The night held everything evenly, without change or interruption. Your breathing stayed slow and deep, each breath a quiet continuation of the last. The body remained at rest, unmoving, supported by the steady presence beneath you. Far ahead, though unseen, the train continued to follow its route, confident and precise. There was comfort in knowing that everything was proceeding exactly as it should. The darkness outside began, very subtly, to thin. Not with light, but with a barely noticeable shift, a sense of openness at the horizon. It was too early for morning, but the night had begun its gentle transition. Inside, nothing changed. The calm remained intact. The warmth remained steady. The sound remained soft and continuous. Sleep held firm now, deep and uninterrupted. Awareness stayed distant, floating quietly in the background. The journey continued on its own, carrying the night forward, carrying rest along with it, moving steadily toward dawn, without hurry, without effort, and without disturbance. The train continued forward, unchanged in its motion, unchanged in its quiet purpose. The hours before sunrise stretched gently, unmarked and calm. Outside, the darkness no longer felt heavy, only soft, as if it had settled comfortably over the land. Inside the coach, the stillness remained complete. The space felt suspended, untouched by time. The faint hum beneath you was steady and low, a constant reminder that the journey was moving forward even as everything else rested. Your body remained fully at ease. There was no sensation of effort anywhere. The surface beneath you felt supportive, familiar, almost as though it had adjusted itself perfectly to your shape. Every part of you felt allowed to rest without interruption. Breathing stayed slow and deep, smooth and quiet. Each breath seemed to dissolve gently into the next, with no clear beginning or end. The pauses between breaths felt peaceful and wide, giving the sense that there was plenty of time, more than enough. The sound of the train had softened even further, becoming almost indistinguishable from silence. It was present without being noticeable, like a distant memory that offered comfort rather than distraction. Outside the window, the night continued its quiet watch. Fields, rivers, and roads passed unseen, resting beneath the dark sky. Nothing called for attention. Nothing broke the calm. The train moved through another stretch of open land. No stations appeared. No lights interrupted the view. The uninterrupted darkness felt soothing, protective, allowing rest to deepen naturally. Inside, the air remained cool and balanced. Curtains hung still. Shadows lay quietly along the walls and floor. Everything seemed settled into exactly the place it was meant to be. Thoughts did not return. The mind stayed open and quiet, free of direction. There was no awareness of time passing, no sense of waiting for anything to happen. The present moment felt complete on its own. The gentle sway of the coach continued, subtle and regular. It felt like a slow, rhythmic rocking, steady enough to be trusted, gentle enough to fade into the background. Each movement supported deeper relaxation. Far ahead, unseen and unheard, the tracks continued to guide the train forward. There was reassurance in that quiet certainty, in knowing the path was already set and required no attention. The darkness outside began to thin just slightly, not with light, but with a softer quality. The sky remained dark, yet it felt less dense, as if it were slowly preparing to release the night. Inside the coach, nothing changed. The calm remained unbroken. The quiet stayed intact. Sleep rested deeply, undisturbed. Breathing continued at the same slow pace, effortless and smooth. The body felt distant now, no longer demanding awareness. Sensation softened, blending gently with stillness. The train crossed another bridge, marked only by a brief, muted change in sound. The moment passed without significance, leaving the steady rhythm untouched. Outside, the horizon held a faint suggestion of openness. Still no color, no light, just a subtle shift that hinted at the passage of time. The night remained firmly in place, holding the world gently. Inside, rest was complete. Awareness stayed distant and quiet, floating softly without shape or direction. The journey continued on its own, carrying everything forward with patience and care. The train moved steadily through the last deep hours of night, unhurried and calm, guiding the quiet onward, allowing sleep to remain deep and uninterrupted, as the world rested peacefully, waiting for morning to arrive in its own gentle time. The train continued exactly as it had been, steady and reliable, as the night slowly eased toward its final hours. Nothing changed abruptly. Nothing needed to. The darkness outside remained calm and spacious, no longer heavy, simply present, like a soft blanket laid gently over the land. Inside the coach, the stillness felt complete and settled. The space no longer felt like a place of travel, but like a quiet shelter moving gently through the night. The soft hum beneath you remained constant, smooth and reassuring, asking for no attention at all. Your body stayed deeply relaxed. There was no awareness of position or posture anymore, only a general sense of comfort and support. Muscles rested fully, loose and warm. The feeling of weight was pleasant, grounding, as if gravity itself had softened. Breathing flowed slowly and evenly, effortless and natural. Each breath blended into the next, creating a calm, continuous rhythm. The pauses between breaths felt unhurried and spacious, filled with ease. The sound of the train had faded into the background completely. It no longer registered as motion or noise, only as a quiet presence that supported rest. Silence and sound existed together, balanced and gentle. Outside the window, the darkness began to shift almost imperceptibly. Still no light, still no color, just a subtle thinning of night at the far edges of the sky. The land below remained unseen, resting quietly as it had all night. The train passed through another small, sleeping station. A single lamp glowed softly for a moment, sliding across the window and disappearing behind you. No movement followed. No sound lingered. The moment passed without leaving a trace. Inside, nothing changed. The air stayed cool and calm. Curtains hung still. Shadows rested quietly along the walls. Everything remained exactly as it should be. Thoughts did not return. The mind remained open and quiet, free of form or direction. There was no sense of past or future, only the steady continuation of the present moment. Time moved on silently, unnoticed. Minutes and hours passed without distinction. The journey unfolded smoothly, without interruption, without urgency. The gentle sway of the coach continued, subtle and rhythmic. It felt like being carried, supported on all sides. Each movement encouraged deeper rest, allowing awareness to soften even further. Far ahead, unseen, the tracks guided the train forward with certainty. There was comfort in knowing that everything was proceeding exactly as planned, without effort or concern. Outside, the sky began to feel wider. Still dark, still quiet, but slightly more open, as if making space for the morning that would arrive later, gently and without announcement. Inside the coach, sleep remained deep and undisturbed. Breathing stayed slow and steady. The body remained still, supported, at ease. The train continued through the quiet hours before dawn, steady and calm, carrying the night forward, carrying rest along with it, moving patiently through darkness, allowing sleep to remain complete and effortless, as the world waited peacefully for the day to begin. The train continued its gentle passage through the last stretch of night, moving with the same quiet confidence it had carried all along. There was no sense of nearing an end, no change in pace, only the calm continuation of motion that felt timeless and reassuring. Inside the coach, the stillness had settled so deeply that it felt permanent. The air seemed unmoving, yet fresh, balanced perfectly between cool and warm. Every surface appeared softened by shadow, edges blurred slightly, as if the world itself had relaxed its focus. Your body remained fully at rest. There was no awareness of pressure points or posture, only a uniform sense of comfort. Muscles lay loose and heavy, completely released. Even the smallest tensions that often linger unnoticed had quietly faded away. Breathing continued slowly and naturally, deep without effort. Each inhale arrived smoothly, filling gently, then dissolving into a long, quiet exhale. The rhythm felt unchanging, steady, almost synchronized with the motion beneath you. The sound of the train existed now as a distant, even tone, neither loud nor silent. It felt like part of the environment rather than a separate noise, blending seamlessly into the calm. There was no need to listen to it. It simply was. Outside the window, the darkness had softened further. The sky remained dark, but it no longer felt closed. There was a faint sense of space at the horizon, as if the night were slowly opening rather than lifting. No light yet, only a gentle thinning of shadow. The train passed through open land, uninterrupted and quiet. No stations appeared for a long while. No signals flashed by. The absence of change felt comforting, predictable, safe. Inside the coach, nothing stirred. Curtains hung motionless. Blankets lay undisturbed. The shared quiet among sleeping passengers felt complete, as if everyone had arrived together at the same depth of rest. Thoughts did not return. The mind rested in a soft, open state where nothing formed clearly enough to require attention. Awareness felt distant, diffused, floating gently without focus or direction. Time passed without shape or markers. Minutes and hours moved through without leaving impressions. The night stretched comfortably, unbroken, allowing rest to deepen naturally. The gentle rocking of the train continued, slow and even. Each sway felt familiar and supportive, like a calm, repetitive motion designed to soothe. There was no effort involved in following it. The body simply responded by relaxing further. Somewhere far ahead, unseen, the train followed its route with certainty. Tracks guided it forward smoothly, without hesitation. There was quiet reassurance in knowing that everything was already taken care of. Outside, a faint suggestion of color began to gather low in the sky, barely perceptible, more felt than seen. The darkness remained dominant, but it had grown lighter in texture, as though preparing to lift gently rather than disappear. Inside, the coach remained unchanged. The dim lighting stayed soft and constant. Shadows rested easily along the walls and floor. The air remained calm and balanced. Breathing continued in the same slow rhythm, unbroken and effortless. Each breath seemed to anchor you more deeply into rest, allowing the body and mind to remain fully at ease. The train crossed another bridge, marked by a subtle shift in sound that passed almost unnoticed. The moment slipped by quietly, leaving the steady rhythm untouched. Outside, the land remained unseen, resting beneath the dark sky. Rivers flowed quietly. Fields waited. Roads lay empty. Everything beyond the window shared the same calm, the same patience. Inside the coach, sleep remained deep and undisturbed. Awareness stayed distant, soft, and unfocused. There was no sense of waiting for morning, no anticipation. The present moment felt complete on its own. The train continued through the quiet hours before dawn, steady and unhurried, carrying the last of the night gently forward. Rest remained complete and effortless, held securely within the calm motion, as the world stayed peaceful, allowing sleep to linger, uninterrupted and deep, just a little longer. The train continued onward with the same calm assurance, as though nothing in the world could persuade it to move any faster or any slower. The night had thinned even more now, not with brightness, but with a softness that made everything feel open and spacious. The darkness no longer pressed in, it simply surrounded gently. Inside the coach, the stillness felt complete and settled, as if it had always been this way. The air remained cool and balanced, touching the skin lightly without drawing attention. Every object seemed to rest exactly where it belonged, undisturbed and unhurried. Your body stayed deeply relaxed, resting without awareness of effort or position. There was no sense of holding yourself up or keeping still. Everything felt supported naturally, as though the train itself carried not only your weight, but any remaining concern as well. Breathing flowed slowly and quietly, smooth and even. Each breath felt spacious, unconfined, and easy. The pause after each exhale lingered gently, offering a moment of complete stillness before the next breath arrived on its own. The sound beneath you remained steady and low, a soft continuity that blended into the background. It no longer felt like movement through space, but like a constant presence, reassuring and calm, requiring no attention at all. Outside the window, the sky held a faint hint of change. Still dark, still quiet, but subtly lighter near the horizon. No colors had appeared yet, only a sense that the night was slowly loosening its hold, preparing to give way in its own time. The train passed through another stretch of open land. No lights appeared nearby. No stations interrupted the view. The uninterrupted darkness felt soothing, allowing the calm to deepen without distraction. Inside the coach, nothing stirred. Curtains hung quietly. Shadows remained soft and unmoving. Other passengers slept nearby, unseen but present, sharing the same gentle motion, the same deep rest. Thoughts remained absent. The mind stayed open and quiet, free from images or ideas. There was no need to remember anything or anticipate what came next. The present moment was enough. Time continued to move forward, but without urgency or markers. Minutes slipped by unnoticed. Hours blended together smoothly. The journey unfolded without calling attention to itself. The gentle sway of the train continued, subtle and rhythmic. It felt like a slow, reassuring rocking, steady enough to trust completely. Each motion supported rest, encouraging awareness to remain soft and distant. Outside, the land rested quietly beneath the sky. Rivers flowed unseen. Trees stood still. Roads remained empty. Everything beyond the window shared the same calm patience. Inside, breathing remained slow and effortless. The body felt distant now, no longer asking to be noticed. Sensations softened, blending gently into the surrounding stillness. The train crossed another bridge, the sound shifting slightly for a brief moment before returning to its familiar pattern. The change passed without significance, barely noticed before it faded. At the far edge of the sky, a subtle lightness continued to gather, still faint, still gentle. The night remained present, but it felt thinner now, lighter, as though it were gradually stepping aside. Inside the coach, nothing changed. The calm held firm. The quiet remained unbroken. Sleep stayed deep and steady, undisturbed. The train continued through the final stretch before dawn, unhurried and patient, carrying rest forward with it. Everything moved exactly as it should, allowing sleep to linger comfortably, wrapped in a steady motion, as the world remained peaceful, waiting quietly for morning to arrive. The train kept moving, steady and calm, as if the quiet of the night had become part of its very structure. Nothing announced the passage of time. Nothing marked progress. The journey simply continued, smooth and unbroken, carrying rest forward with gentle certainty. Inside the coach, the atmosphere felt suspended, untouched by urgency. The air was still and soft, holding a comfortable balance that required no adjustment. Every sound, every movement had settled into a familiar background, leaving space only for ease. Your body remained deeply relaxed, resting without awareness of effort. There was no sense of weight pressing or pulling, only a gentle support that felt constant and dependable. Muscles stayed loose and quiet, completely released. Breathing continued at its own slow pace, unforced and steady. Each breath arrived softly and departed just as gently, creating a calm rhythm that flowed without interruption. The pauses between breaths felt open and peaceful, like small moments of complete stillness. The sound of the train existed now only as a faint continuity, a low presence that blended seamlessly into silence. It did not demand attention or recognition. It simply accompanied the night, steady and reliable. Outside the window, the darkness had thinned even further. Still no direct light, still no color, but the sky felt wider now, less dense. The horizon seemed to stretch gently, making room for the day that would come later, quietly and without ceremony. The train passed through open land where no lights appeared at all. The absence of change felt soothing. The world beyond the glass remained calm and undisturbed, resting in deep quiet. Inside the coach, everything stayed unchanged. Curtains remained still. Shadows lay softly along the walls and floor. Other passengers continued to sleep nearby, unseen but present, sharing the same gentle motion, the same deep rest. Thoughts did not return. The mind stayed open and empty, resting without direction or focus. There was no awareness of before or after, only the steady continuation of now. Time slipped by unnoticed. Minutes dissolved into one another. Hours passed without leaving any impression. The night unfolded slowly, evenly, allowing rest to deepen without interruption. The gentle rocking of the train continued, subtle and consistent. It felt like a calm, repetitive motion designed to soothe, familiar enough to fade completely into the background. Outside, the land remained unseen beneath the softening sky. Fields waited quietly. Rivers flowed without sound. Roads stayed empty. Everything beyond the window shared the same patience. Inside, breathing remained slow and even. The body felt distant, no longer asking for attention. Sensation softened further, blending naturally into stillness. The train crossed another bridge, marked only by a brief change in sound that passed almost unnoticed. The steady rhythm returned immediately, uninterrupted and calm. At the far edge of the sky, the darkness continued to ease, becoming lighter in texture, though still dark in color. Morning had not arrived, but the night had begun to step back gently, without haste. Inside the coach, calm remained complete. The quiet held firm. Sleep stayed deep and effortless. The train moved onward through these final quiet moments before dawn, unhurried and patient, carrying rest forward, allowing sleep to remain undisturbed, as the world stayed peaceful and still, waiting softly for the day to begin. The train continued on its path, unchanged in speed or rhythm, as if it were moving through a world that had agreed to remain quiet just a little longer. The night felt calm and settled now, no longer deep, no longer heavy, simply present in a gentle, unbroken way. Inside the coach, the stillness remained complete. Nothing shifted. Nothing called for attention. The air felt smooth and balanced, resting lightly against the skin. Every sound had softened into the background, leaving only a sense of continuity and ease. Your body stayed deeply at rest, comfortably heavy and fully supported. There was no awareness of position, no need to adjust or move. Muscles remained loose, relaxed beyond effort, as if they had forgotten how to hold tension. Breathing flowed slowly and evenly, each breath arriving quietly and leaving just as softly. The rhythm felt natural and steady, like a calm tide moving in and out without ever reaching the shore. The pauses between breaths were spacious and peaceful. The sound beneath you remained faint and steady, more felt than heard. It blended seamlessly with the quiet, creating a gentle sense of motion that required no attention. The train carried everything forward smoothly, without interruption. Outside the window, the sky continued to soften. Still dark, still quiet, but lighter in feeling now, as though the night were gently loosening its hold. The land below remained unseen, resting quietly beneath the wide sky. The train passed through another stretch of open land. No lights appeared nearby. No signs or signals broke the calm. The uninterrupted quiet felt reassuring, predictable, safe. Inside the coach, shadows rested softly along the walls and floor. Curtains hung still. Other passengers remained asleep nearby, unseen but present, sharing the same gentle movement, the same deep rest. Thoughts remained absent. The mind stayed open and quiet, without images or ideas forming clearly enough to matter. There was no sense of time passing, no awareness of destination, only the steady continuation of the present moment. The gentle sway of the train continued, slow and rhythmic. It felt familiar and comforting, like a motion that had always been there. Each subtle movement supported deeper rest, allowing awareness to remain soft and distant. Outside, the horizon felt wider now. Still no light, no color, only a subtle openness, as if the sky were preparing itself quietly. Morning had not arrived, and there was no need for it to arrive yet. Inside, breathing remained slow and effortless. The body felt distant, almost weightless within its heaviness, resting without demand or effort. The train crossed another bridge, the sound changing briefly and gently before returning to its steady pattern. The moment passed without significance, barely noticed. Calm held firm. Quiet remained unbroken. Sleep stayed deep and steady. The train continued through these quiet hours, patient and unhurried, carrying rest forward without disturbance, allowing sleep to linger naturally, as the world remained peaceful, still wrapped in the final softness of night. The train continued forward with the same unchanging calm, as though it were moving through a world that had decided to remain gentle and quiet for as long as possible. Nothing about the motion felt new or different. It was steady, familiar, and reassuring, like a rhythm that no longer needed to be noticed to be trusted. Inside the coach, the stillness felt complete and settled, as if it had reached its deepest point. The air was smooth and cool, resting lightly without stirring. Every surface seemed softened by shadow, edges blurred just enough to remove any sharpness. The space felt safe, contained, and undemanding. Your body remained deeply at rest. There was no sense of effort anywhere. muscles lay loose and quiet, fully released. The weight of the body felt evenly supported, as if the seat beneath you had adjusted itself perfectly, holding you without pressure or resistance. Breathing flowed slowly and naturally, each breath arriving without thought and leaving without effort. The rise and fall of the chest was gentle and steady, almost imperceptible. The pauses between breaths felt wide and peaceful, moments of complete stillness where nothing happened and nothing needed to. The sound of the train existed now only as a soft continuity, a low presence that blended seamlessly into silence. It did not feel like movement anymore, but like a quiet assurance that everything was proceeding exactly as it should. There was no need to listen. The sound was simply there, steady and dependable. Outside the window, the night had softened even further. The sky remained dark, but it no longer felt dense or closed. There was a faint sense of openness near the horizon, not light, not color, just space. The land below remained unseen, resting quietly beneath the wide sky. The train passed through long stretches of open land where no lights appeared at all. No stations, no signals, no signs of activity. The absence of interruption felt comforting. The world beyond the glass seemed content to remain still, sharing the same patience as the journey itself. Inside the coach, nothing stirred. Curtains hung motionless. Blankets lay undisturbed. Shadows rested quietly along the walls and floor. Other passengers slept nearby, unseen but present, each carried by the same gentle motion, each wrapped in the same deep calm. Thoughts did not return. The mind remained open and quiet, free from images or ideas. There was no sense of past or future, no awareness of destination. Only the present moment existed, wide and calm, stretching comfortably without end. Time continued to move forward, but without shape or markers. Minutes and hours blended together smoothly. There was no difference between them. The night unfolded evenly, allowing rest to deepen without interruption. The gentle rocking of the train continued, slow and rhythmic. It felt familiar and soothing, like a motion designed to cradle rather than carry. Each subtle sway encouraged deeper relaxation, allowing awareness to soften further and drift. Outside, the horizon grew slightly wider still. The darkness remained, but it felt lighter in texture, thinner, as though the night were slowly stepping back rather than lifting away. Morning had not arrived, and there was no urgency for it to do so. Inside, breathing remained slow and effortless. The body felt distant now, no longer asking to be noticed. Sensation softened, blending gently into the surrounding stillness. Everything felt balanced and complete. The train crossed another bridge, marked by a brief and gentle change in sound. The moment passed quietly, leaving the steady rhythm untouched. Beneath, unseen water flowed calmly, continuing its own quiet journey through the night. Calm held firm inside the coach. The quiet remained unbroken. Sleep stayed deep and steady, undisturbed by thought or sound. The train continued onward through these final hours before dawn, patient and unhurried, carrying rest forward with care. Nothing needed to change. Nothing needed to happen. The journey moved on quietly, allowing sleep to remain complete and effortless, as the world stayed peaceful and still, waiting softly for the day to begin. The train continued its gentle passage, steady and unchanging, as if it were moving through a stretch of time that belonged only to rest. Nothing about the journey felt hurried or uncertain. Each moment followed the last smoothly, without pause or disturbance, like a calm breath extending itself a little longer. Inside the coach, the quiet felt deep and settled, as though it had reached a place where it no longer needed to deepen further. The air was cool and even, resting lightly against the skin. There were no sharp edges anywhere, no contrasts demanding attention. Everything existed in softened outlines, shaped gently by shadow and low light. Your body remained completely relaxed. There was no awareness of weight or posture now, only a sense of being held and supported. Muscles stayed loose and quiet, fully released from effort. Even the smallest tensions, the kind that often linger unnoticed, had faded away without asking. Breathing continued in a slow, steady rhythm, unforced and natural. Each inhale arrived smoothly, filling gently, then eased into a long, quiet exhale. The space between breaths felt calm and open, like a pause that held nothing but stillness. The sound of the train existed only as a faint continuity, a low presence beneath everything else. It did not draw attention or require listening. It blended seamlessly into the silence, offering reassurance without intrusion. Motion and stillness felt balanced, neither overpowering the other. Outside the window, the sky remained dark, but its texture had changed. The night no longer felt closed in. It felt wide and spacious, as though it had slowly expanded. Near the horizon, there was a subtle sense of openness, not yet light, not yet color, only the suggestion of space. The train passed through long stretches of land without lights or signs of life. Fields rested unseen. Trees stood quietly. Roads lay empty. The absence of activity felt soothing, as if the world itself had chosen to remain still a little longer. Inside the coach, nothing shifted. Curtains hung without movement. Shadows rested softly along the walls and floor. Other passengers slept nearby, unseen but present, each carried by the same calm motion, each sharing the same deep rest. Thoughts did not form. The mind remained open and quiet, free from direction. There was no sense of before or after, no awareness of distance or destination. Only the present moment existed, steady and complete. Time moved forward silently. Minutes and hours passed without distinction. The night unfolded at its own gentle pace, allowing rest to remain deep and uninterrupted. The gentle sway of the train continued, slow and rhythmic. It felt familiar and comforting, like a motion designed to cradle rather than transport. Each subtle movement supported deeper relaxation, encouraging awareness to remain soft and distant. Outside, the horizon felt wider still. The darkness remained, but it had grown lighter in feeling, thinner, as though the night were gradually stepping aside. Morning was not yet present, but the night no longer held the same depth. Inside, breathing remained slow and effortless. The body felt distant now, resting without demand or awareness. Sensations softened further, blending gently into stillness. The train crossed another bridge, marked only by a slight change in sound that passed quietly and returned to its steady rhythm. Beneath, unseen water flowed calmly, continuing its own quiet path through the dark. Calm held firm inside the coach. The quiet remained complete. Sleep stayed deep and steady, undisturbed by thought or sound. The train moved onward through these quiet moments before dawn, patient and unhurried, carrying rest forward without effort. Nothing needed to change. Nothing needed to happen. The journey continued gently, allowing sleep to remain full and peaceful, as the world stayed calm and still, waiting softly for the day to arrive in its own time. The train continued onward, faithful to its calm rhythm, as if it were moving through a stretch of time that existed only for rest and quiet. The motion felt endless in a comforting way, not because it went on forever, but because nothing about it demanded attention. Each moment followed the next with gentle certainty. Inside the coach, the stillness felt complete and settled, as though it had reached a perfect balance. The air remained cool and smooth, touching the skin lightly without drawing notice. Everything felt softened edges, sounds, even awareness itself, as if the night had carefully rounded away anything sharp. Your body stayed deeply relaxed, fully supported, without any sense of effort. There was no need to move or adjust. Muscles rested quietly, heavy and loose. The feeling of being held was steady and reassuring, like a calm surface that never shifted. Breathing continued in its slow, even rhythm. Each breath arrived naturally and left just as gently. The pauses between breaths felt long and peaceful, moments where nothing happened and nothing needed to. The body seemed content to remain exactly as it was. The sound of the train existed now only as a soft continuity beneath everything else. It no longer felt like movement through space, but like a quiet presence that made the stillness feel safe. Sound and silence blended together so completely that they were no longer separate. Outside the window, the sky remained dark, but it felt lighter in character now. Not brighter, just more open. The horizon seemed to stretch gently, creating a sense of space rather than depth. The land below remained unseen, resting quietly as it had all night. The train passed through another long stretch of open land. No lights appeared. No stations interrupted the flow. The absence of change felt calming, predictable, and steady, as though the world beyond the glass had chosen to remain asleep. Inside the coach, nothing stirred. Curtains hung motionless. Shadows lay softly along the walls and floor. Other passengers slept nearby, unseen but present, sharing the same gentle motion, the same deep calm. Thoughts remained distant or absent altogether. The mind rested in an open, quiet space where nothing formed clearly enough to matter. There was no awareness of time, no sense of waiting. The present moment felt complete on its own. Time moved forward without marking itself. Minutes and hours passed unnoticed, blending smoothly into one another. The night continued evenly, allowing rest to remain deep and uninterrupted. The gentle rocking of the train continued, slow and regular. It felt familiar, almost like a memory of comfort rather than a physical sensation. Each subtle sway supported relaxation, encouraging awareness to stay soft and unfocused. Outside, the horizon felt wider still. The darkness remained, but it was thinner now, lighter in texture, as though the night were slowly loosening its hold. Morning was not yet present, and there was no urgency for it to appear. Inside, breathing stayed slow and effortless. The body felt distant now, resting without demand or attention. Sensations softened further, blending gently into the surrounding stillness. The train crossed another bridge, marked by a brief, muted change in sound that passed quietly and returned to its steady pattern. Beneath, unseen water flowed calmly, continuing its own quiet journey. Calm held firm inside the coach. The quiet remained unbroken. Sleep stayed deep and steady, undisturbed. The train continued through these final, gentle moments of night, patient and unhurried, carrying rest forward with care. Everything moved exactly as it should, allowing sleep to remain full and peaceful, as the world stayed calm and still, waiting softly for the day to arrive. The train moved on with the same steady assurance, as if it had settled into a rhythm that nothing could disturb. The night felt calm and generous now, offering long, quiet moments without interruption. There was no sense of urgency anywhere, no signal that anything needed to change. Inside the coach, the stillness felt complete, almost protective. The air remained smooth and cool, balanced perfectly. Every surface seemed softened by the low light, edges blurred just enough to remove any sharpness. The space felt gentle and forgiving, inviting rest without asking anything in return. Your body stayed deeply relaxed, resting without awareness of effort or position. There was no sensation of holding yourself in place. Everything felt supported naturally, as if the train itself carried not only the body, but the last traces of wakefulness as well. Breathing continued slowly and evenly, each breath flowing without thought. The rise and fall of the chest was subtle and calm. The pauses between breaths felt wide and peaceful, moments of complete stillness where nothing happened at all. The sound of the train existed now only as a faint continuity beneath everything else. It no longer felt like motion, only like reassurance. Sound and silence blended together so completely that neither stood out. The quiet felt whole. Outside the window, the sky remained dark, but its character had softened further. It felt wide and open, no longer dense. The horizon held a gentle sense of space, though no light had appeared yet. The land below remained unseen, resting quietly beneath the open sky. The train passed through another long stretch of open land without lights or stations. Fields lay still. Trees stood unmoving. Roads remained empty. The absence of activity felt calming, predictable, safe. Inside the coach, nothing shifted. Curtains hung motionless. Shadows rested softly along the walls and floor. Other passengers slept nearby, unseen but present, sharing the same gentle motion and deep rest. Thoughts did not return. The mind remained open and quiet, free from images or direction. There was no awareness of time passing, no sense of waiting for anything. The present moment felt complete on its own. Time continued forward silently. Minutes and hours slipped by unnoticed, blending smoothly into one another. The night unfolded evenly, allowing rest to remain deep and uninterrupted. The gentle rocking of the train continued, slow and rhythmic. It felt familiar and comforting, like a motion remembered rather than felt. Each subtle sway supported relaxation, encouraging awareness to remain soft and distant. Outside, the horizon felt wider still. The darkness remained, but it was thinner now, lighter in feeling. Morning had not arrived, but the night no longer held the same depth. There was no rush for change. Inside, breathing stayed slow and effortless. The body felt distant now, resting without demand or attention. Sensations softened further, blending gently into stillness. The train crossed another bridge, marked by a brief, muted change in sound that passed quietly and returned to its steady rhythm. Beneath, unseen water flowed calmly, continuing its own quiet journey. Calm held firm inside the coach. The quiet remained complete. Sleep stayed deep and steady, undisturbed by thought or sound. The train continued through these quiet moments, patient and unhurried, carrying rest forward with care. Everything moved exactly as it should, allowing sleep to remain full and peaceful, as the world stayed calm and still, waiting softly for the day to arrive in its own gentle time. The train continued its steady movement, unbroken and calm, as though it were traveling through a space where nothing ever hurried. The night felt settled and kind, offering silence freely, without conditions. There was no signal that anything needed attention, no sound that asked to be followed. Inside the coach, the quiet felt deep and complete. The air remained cool and smooth, resting gently against the skin. Everything seemed to exist in softened layers, as if the world had lowered its volume and dimmed its edges all at once. Your body remained fully relaxed, supported without effort. There was no awareness of where the body rested or how it was positioned. Muscles stayed loose and still, heavy in a comforting way. Even the idea of movement felt distant and unnecessary. Breathing continued slowly, evenly, and naturally. Each breath arrived without thought and left without resistance. The gentle rise and fall felt calm and predictable, like a rhythm that had always been there. The quiet pauses between breaths felt peaceful and open. The sound of the train had faded into a soft background presence, barely noticeable now. It no longer felt like motion, only like a steady reassurance beneath everything else. Silence and sound blended together so smoothly that they felt like one. Outside the window, the sky remained dark, but it felt lighter in texture, less dense. The horizon seemed wide and open, holding space quietly. No colors had appeared yet, only a sense that the night was slowly easing, without hurry. The train passed through another long stretch of open land. No lights appeared nearby. No stations or crossings interrupted the calm. The absence of change felt soothing, allowing the quiet to continue undisturbed. Inside the coach, everything remained still. Curtains hung motionless. Shadows rested softly along the walls and floor. Other passengers slept nearby, unseen but present, sharing the same gentle motion, the same deep rest. Thoughts stayed absent. The mind remained open and quiet, without images or direction. There was no sense of time passing, no awareness of distance traveled. The present moment felt complete and sufficient. Time moved forward silently. Minutes and hours slipped by without marking themselves. The night unfolded evenly, allowing rest to remain deep and uninterrupted. The gentle sway of the train continued, slow and rhythmic. It felt familiar and comforting, like a motion remembered rather than felt. Each subtle movement supported relaxation, encouraging awareness to remain soft and distant. Outside, the horizon felt wider still. The darkness remained, but it was thinner now, lighter in feeling. Morning had not arrived, and there was no need for it to arrive yet. Inside, breathing stayed slow and effortless. The body felt distant now, resting without demand or attention. Sensations softened further, blending gently into stillness. The train crossed another bridge, marked only by a brief, muted change in sound that passed quietly and returned to its steady rhythm. Beneath, unseen water flowed calmly, continuing its quiet journey. Calm held firm inside the coach. The quiet remained complete. Sleep stayed deep and steady, undisturbed. The train continued onward through the final quiet stretch of night, patient and unhurried, carrying rest forward gently, allowing sleep to remain full and peaceful, as the world stayed calm and still, waiting softly for the day to arrive. The train continued forward for a while longer, steady and calm, as if it understood that this part of the journey belonged to rest alone. Nothing interrupted the quiet. Nothing asked to be noticed. The motion remained gentle and predictable, carrying the last moments of night with care. Inside the coach, the stillness felt complete, as though it had reached a natural conclusion. The air remained cool and soft, resting lightly without movement. Shadows stayed where they were, unchanging, comfortable. Everything felt settled, finished, and whole. Your body rested deeply now, fully surrendered to sleep. There was no awareness of shape or position, no sense of effort or control. Muscles were loose and quiet. The feeling of being supported was total, as if the train, the seat, and the night itself had combined into a single, steady presence. Breathing continued slowly and evenly, smooth and unbroken. Each breath flowed into the next without pause or thought. The spaces between breaths felt calm and complete, moments where nothing happened and nothing needed to. The sound of the train faded even further into the background, becoming almost indistinguishable from silence. It no longer felt like movement or noise, only like a distant reassurance that everything was continuing safely, exactly as it should. Outside the window, the sky held the faintest suggestion of change. Still dark, still quiet, but lighter in feeling now, as though the night were gently stepping aside. No color appeared yet. No brightness. Just a soft openness spreading slowly at the horizon. The train passed through one last quiet stretch of land. No lights appeared. No stations interrupted the calm. The world beyond the glass remained asleep, peaceful and undisturbed. Inside the coach, nothing stirred. Curtains remained still. Shadows rested gently along the walls. Other passengers slept nearby, unseen and silent, sharing the same deep rest, carried together through the final moments of night. Thoughts did not return. The mind remained open and quiet, free from direction or form. Time no longer mattered. There was no sense of before or after. Only rest remained, deep and complete. The gentle rocking of the train continued, slow and familiar, like a final reassurance. Each subtle sway supported sleep, allowing awareness to drift even further away. Somewhere far ahead, unseen, the tracks continued to guide the train forward. Morning would arrive in its own time, softly and without urgency. There was no need to meet it yet. Inside, breathing stayed slow and effortless. The body rested fully, without demand or awareness. Sleep held firm, calm and uninterrupted. The train moved on quietly, carrying the last of the night forward, leaving nothing unfinished. Everything was peaceful. Everything was steady. And as the world waited gently for the day to begin, sleep remained deep and complete, held safely within the calm, unchanging motion, allowing rest to continue, softly and endlessly, just as it was meant to be.